Hey there, friendlies. Welcome to the 9th of March episode of the Beer Blades and Bushcraft live stream. Tonight is another episode in my kind of irregular interview series. I'm very excited about it. I'm looking forward to the discussion. First, I want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you're missing us tonight, but you're catching up with us time shifted to tomorrow or next week, then thank you. That means a lot to me. I know there's several of you who do that now, and I really like the comments that you drop down below in the days and sometimes weeks to follow. I guess the next order of business, since it's the Beer Blades and Bushcraft live stream, I will tell you about the beer I have tonight. This is not showing up well. It is Le Coup de Canon. It's a coffee stout from a local brewery. I will try to pour it without destroying it, but since Serge is not in the side chat, I think it will go well. Just making sure I got my paper towels handy just in case. It is a very nice dark color, which you cannot yet see. And you still can't see. For land's sakes, just pour the damn beer. There we go. That's what beer should look like. So, that's done. The housekeeping is done. I just want to say hi to everyone we've got in the side chat so far. Obviously, we've got Mr. Fox at Outdoors. Nice to see you again. Grace, how's it going? Mark Putmans, nice to see you around. Simon, bonsoir, monsieur. Adventures with Josie. I don't know if I've seen you before, but I do recognize your name. And I think we're about ready to go. My guest for tonight, excuse me, that was pro. My guest for tonight really doesn't need any introduction. She's got a great channel. She's an outdoors person, paddler, kind of an athlete, done some Ironman, some hiking, some stuff. Her and her partner have a great chemistry on screen. The filming is terrific. The editing is tasteful. If you're into filmmaking or went to film school like some of us did, then her channel can be positively depressing. So without any further ado, I'd like to welcome Chris and Julia Prouse to the live stream. How's it going, folks?
Hey, thanks for having us, Jess.
I've been looking forward to this. I think I contacted you about doing an episode like 2 or 3 months ago, and then life got in the way. So it's nice to finally be doing this. What we're talking about tonight is doing the backwoodsy stuff with kids. I don't mean like kids like my 9-year-old. I mean wee ones, because both Julia and Chris and I have wee ones, and we like to be in the outdoors. One thing that hadn't happened yet when I first decided that I wanted to do this episode was a recent episode of yours, which shows us in great detail the safety-related issues. But I think that what you start with when you have a conversation like this is you start with the skills that you bring, right? I mean, because you can't just decide you want to be an outdoors person and then pack your kids into the woods. I think you really have to bring a little bit of skill to that. And you both clearly got the goods. So do you want to start off by just talking a little bit about that, and then we can segue?
Yeah. And I'll start off by saying we are by no means experts. And if anybody is looking to us for advice on how to take young kids into the backcountry, please don't just listen to us. Do lots and lots of research. Pull information from as many different sources as you can, and try to get a well-rounded view of everything. And that's more or less what we try to do. We did a ton of research before we went into the backcountry with Cedar. And to add to that, we also didn't just jump into it. We took a very gradual approach to it. So we started with very short paddles that were only 5 minutes long, and just gradually worked it up just a little bit, and got Cedar accustomed to as many different things and experiences as we could out there. So yeah, try to learn from as many people as possible, and take as gradual an approach as you possibly can. So,
Speaking of family, while we're waiting for Jess to come back, we also.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
Okay.
Everything okay on your end?
Yeah. I just due to the nature of my wife's job, she can't appear on screen. So every time, the people who've been watching me for a long time know that if I suddenly do this, it's because she had to come down and get something. So that's done. I guess I should have warned you guys.
That's okay.
Epic pro right here, but sorry.
No, that's
No worries. Yeah, we certainly came to camping with the kid with a great deal of camping experience. I mean, Chris and I have been backcountry camping for like over 10 years and doing all sorts of
together. And Julia's been backcountry camping for almost 20 years, so she's been doing it for a very long time.
Yeah. So we came into it being very knowledgeable about what it's like to backcountry camp and knowledgeable about how far we would normally go on a trip. And then our first trip cut that way down. And to be honest, could have cut it down even further.
Probably, yeah.
But one thing I've noticed about both of you, just through watching the channel, is whenever you embark on something big, Venus Link, for instance, you guys plan and plan and plan.
Yeah.
Like when I'm going to buy something really expensive, I spend months researching it to make sure I make the right decision.
Yeah.
Right. And when I'm going somewhere, I like to plan for a while beforehand. But you guys, man, you guys are pros at that, because you think of everything.
I think when we have a specific goal in mind, we do a lot of planning. There have been times where we've gone out like to hike up Whiteface, and
which is in Lake Placid.
Yeah.
And
we're just like, we're just going to do it for fun. We don't have any goals in mind. And that ended up with us walking down in the dark with minimal lighting at like midnight.
Yeah.
Not ideal.
Climbing rock slides that were probably just a little bit beyond our ability. And so Julia's right. That is a good example of when we haven't done as much planning. But
when you're going with your kid, that's when you don't want to be out
Absolutely.
in a dangerous situation in the middle of the night.
Yeah, I understand that. That's for sure. Absolutely. It's funny how I take 10 years ago, I took a lot of chances if I was the one doing something. But not only as soon as I had a kid in tow, but as soon as there was a kid I really wanted to go home to, like any element of adrenaline junkiness, just gone. I'm what the guys in the hunting and bushcraft community would call a safety Sally in a lot of ways, which is not a term I like, and I've never liked it. But I've become really sort of, I want to make sure that no ugly surprises can pop up. I should have learned that a good 5 or 10 years earlier than I did, but the context was different when I did. For me, it was mostly mountain biking accidents more than anything else. I've got a terrific bike that's been sitting in the garage for 9 years, in fact. But it's just interesting how something goes click, and my entire approach has changed, because I was the type of guy who would just go camping. I would bring what I thought I needed, but when I'm taking my girl camping, I make sure we got what we need, because if I'm missing something and I'm alone, I'm like, okay, drag. If she's missing something, I feel a lot worse about it,
Yeah.
So
I get what, completely understand what you're saying, and I think for me, all the planning and all the preparation takes a lot of the unknown out of the equation. So, and I can't remember, I think it was Commander Chris Hadfield who said, like the more we learn and the more we study something and the more we know about what we're doing, the less scary it becomes. And I think that, that was very much our approach to both, Camping with Cedar and the Meanest Link was just like kind of an absurd level of preparation and research, and just months and months and months of research went into both, and tried to I don't know.
But like that's what it takes to pull off a really successful trip sometimes, so right?
Yeah.
Like it's worth it.
Our first trip was so successful, let me tell you. It's I mean, there are certain things that are outside of your control. Yeah.
And we should say that the reason why we decided to start Canoe Camping with Cedar from Canoe was because it had sentimental value to both of us. It's where Julia had her first camping trip. It's where Julia's first camping trip started from, and it's where my first backcountry trip started from as well. And so we sort of wanted to carry on that tradition. Okay. We've been on those lakes and through those areas so many times that they just felt incredibly comfortable to us. And like no one plans a trip expecting to see a bear. And I think after Julie camping for 20 years and me camping for 10 plus years now, like we just like, we've seen bears in the backcountry, but they always sort of just go the other way. Mm-hmm. And we never thought we would have an issue with a nuisance bear. And having said that, we planned all sorts of contingencies in case something did go wrong.
Yep.
Of course, if you watch the video, bear came into our campsite.
I watched it twice, by the way.
Okay.
It's always a good sign.
Yeah. The bear, I will say the bear came at a really inopportune time in the sense that one mistake that I made about posting that video the way I did it was I didn't explain to people who aren't filmmakers that like when I'm filming really, really quickly in the backcountry, sometimes I'll just pop the camera into aperture priority mode and let the camera set the ISO and exposure and stuff like that.
I do that a lot when I'm in the woods.
Yeah, and so when a bear comes into your campsite, that is a really good time to like film an aperture priority mode instead of like fully manual and playing with settings. And so when we were filming around there, I was filming in aperture priority mode. The camera is exposing for Julia, and in the process, ramping up the camera's ISO and blowing out the background and making it look a lot brighter. And earlier during the day, when in actuality we were losing daylight very, very quickly. And okay. I think we've talked about it since, and if the encounter had happened an hour earlier, we would have in all likelihood left the campsite. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it felt like we were losing light really, really quickly, and it was going to be a tight squeeze. And the other thing was, what was I going to say? There were also there were air horns blasting on the other side of the lake as well. So somebody else was having a bear encounter of their own somewhere on the other side of the lake, and it just felt. It felt very precarious, and we didn't have a lot of paddling experience. We hadn't done any paddling at nighttime with Cedar at the time.
So what Chris is trying to say is just some people have commented that we should have left the campsite, but we were trying to weigh the risks of staying versus the risks of paddling at night with an infant. So That's why we chose to stay. But anyways, we did not come here to talk about bears. We've had other interviews where we've talked about our bear encounter.
That's true.
We're here to talk about taking kids into the woods.
That's
And
true.
talking about bears, probably not helping.
Well, one thing I do have about that though, because as soon as you said aperture priority, everything sort of clicked for me, because you had said in previous videos that it was getting too late to paddle out, and I'm like, but it looks like it's 3. But yeah, that makes sense, because I have taken advantage of aperture priority several times while losing the day. But did Cedar have any inkling of what's going on? Was he picking up on your stress?
No, not at that age.
So I think, well, I should say, I think he was picking up on the stress.
On the stress, yeah.
He was picking up on the stress later on in the night when we were in the tent. I think Cedar knew that something was going on between, Julie and I and our reactions to the bear, but not at the particular time of the encounter. Yeah. And I think something else, Jess, that I wanted to mention that played into our decision to stay was, and this is something that we learned with, just trial and error and experience in the backcountry with kids, was doing anything in the backcountry with kids just takes a ridiculous amount of additional time. Yeah. So it's not like you just hop in the canoe and take off. It's just, one person ends up holding onto the baby while the other person runs around and gathers things, and it's just
That's even true of shopping. That's true of car camping. So yeah, I'm not surprised at all.
Yeah, you have an appointment and you'd normally leave in a half hour. Let's start getting ready now.
Yeah, I have sort of blazed in at the very last minute to so many appointments over the past 2 years. I do want to say to the people in the side chat, because I've been missing the entire conversation. When I'm not blocking the screen or we're talking. If you guys have a question, we're gonna steal something from Dennis over at Canoe Hound Adventures. Put question in all caps before you ask your question, and someone on screen here will notice it and answer it.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, so there's obviously that was sort of a large event, but that wasn't the first time you'd taken Cedar into the great outdoors. There are several things I want to ask you about. So maybe we'll start with the easiest one. You equip yourself differently when there's that young a kid. When you had him in the canoe in what looked like a wash tub, was that something made for purpose, or were you guys?
No, okay. Not at all. So we went through many a trial of what would work with Cedar in the canoe. Our very first time we went out in the canoe with him, we put some folded up towels on the bottom of the canoe and just lay him flat. Cried the entire time. We just ended up holding him basically for most of the trip. We tried him in a bouncy chair in the canoe, a relatively small bouncy chair. He loved it.
Yeah.
Not buckled in, he was sitting on top of the bouncy chair, not buckled in, and he did really well with that. Yeah. But bouncy chairs are kind of awkward to carry. So a little hard for portaging.
Yeah.
And then eventually, so we had this laundry bucket that we got as part of a baby shower gift. And it was kind of soft and it's collapsible. And at that time, when he was around 8 months old, he just fit into it perfectly. Yeah. And I don't remember how we decided. I think probably he was playing in it one day and sat down and we're like, I wonder if that would work.
Yeah.
And lo and behold.
Yeah, lo and behold, we put him in it with the life jacket. He had a little headrest as well. Yeah. And he was just happy as a clam. And it was so great because you could put him into the bucket outside of the canoe and then easily just lift the bucket itself and plop it into the canoe.
Yeah. It sounds I would
It
never
just-
have thought of that, by the way.
It just
Yeah.
worked. But then like this year we went with him when he was 1.5, didn't fit into the bucket anymore. But what we did then, he has this little, you know, those high chairs that you can just put like a booster seat on top of a regular chair. So he's so used to sitting on that. We just took the table part off, put that chair inside the canoe, didn't buckle him up or anything. And he's so used to sitting there eating that he's just
Nice.
like, now he could actually see out the side and see motorboats going by, and he's happy as a clown
Happy as a
most
clown.
of the time.
Yeah, yeah. And
I got it.
the other wonderful benefit about using the wash basin that Cedar was in that video is that if some water happens to get into the canoe or in the bottom of the boat, Cedar is effectively Cedar stays dry, and Cedar is insulated from that. So it's this little boat within a boat, so to speak.
Because I don't know if the people watching are aware. Sorry?
You could do sun protection too, like throw like a light sheet over top, like not over his head, but just over the leg portion.
Yeah.
And then he still has some air circulating, but he's protected from the sun.
Yeah.
Sounds ideal. There's a question here. Camper69 asks, some people will attach a harness and leash to a very young child when at a campsite. How do you feel about that? And before you guys answer, I would like to say, I was a real wanderer as a child. So when I was a toddler in Franco, Manitoba, my mama had me in a harness on a dog leash to the corde à linge.
Yeah, the drying line.
Yeah, so that I could walk wherever I wanted in the backyard, but I would stop leaving.
Yeah.
So I'm not great with harnessing and leashing a child on some levels, but I'm still alive.
Yeah.
So there's a benefit there.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I mean, you have to kind of balance out the risks with reality. And there's certainly a risk of strangulation. But if you have a kid who's just constantly going, like I've heard of families where like one kid will just happily sit and play and you just like keep an eye on them out of the corner of your eye while you're doing something else. And they have another kid who just like bolts every chance they get. And they're like, I can't, like, there's nothing I could do.
Yeah.
So I would say like, if you are doing that, you try to reduce the harm by making sure it was like attached to a belt loop rather than something a bit more precarious that could work its way up the neck. And you want to have them monitored at all times as well. So keeping them in the corner of your eye. But otherwise, like, I swear, you almost need like one adult dedicated to child watching while the other adult does like all the other camping stuff. Like the camping trip that we went on last summer, we had this like little play mat for him to play on. Yeah. And he was at the age where most of the time he just kind of play with his toys, and you're like, oh man, like I should be doing something productive here. But the second you walk away, you turn around and he's chewing on a stick.
Yeah. Developing his immune system.
Yes.
Yeah. Ooh, Julia can speak to this question.
Bedtime cure suggestions for sleeping bags, bed, clothing layers, etc. I have a 3-year-old, 18-month-old, and an infant this camping season. Minnesota. So I was just going to say that the climate's not that different from us.
Right.
Right.
So I feel like this question is probably asking one that I had something I wanted to say about bedtime, so I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
The first time we went with Cedar, I was like, well, we'll just bring another sleeping mat and he'll sleep on that and it'll be lightweight and relatively safe, and that's fine. Yeah. And then he was up like every 30 minutes during the night because he'd roll over and then like slide down the sleeping mat and then wake up, and then I'd have to nurse him back to sleep. And I just like, in the middle of the night that night, I was like, I don't care about bears. I don't care about anything. Like, I just want to sleep.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, next time we go camping, I don't care if I have to portage an entire bed. I just want to sleep.
or like a play. What do you call those little cage things?
Yeah, a playpen. So that's what we did.
Playpen,
the
yes.
The next time we went, we had a travel crib, and we just brought the whole travel crib, and we borrowed a really giant tent from a friend.
It's a foldable travel crib, so it folds up into like maybe a meter by maybe like 2 or 3 feet, and it's maybe also about that wide.
Okay.
It's a relatively lightweight travel crib, but like I'll do anything. So that's one suggestion. I mean, the 3-year-old, I think.
Oh, and you should probably also talk about the arrangement in the tent. So, like Cedar, we had the travel crib set up inside the tent itself.
Yeah, we had a big tent.
Really, really big tent that we borrowed from some friends. I think it's actually is it a 4 to a 6 person tent, I think. But it's a quite a large tent. But essentially, like it gave us breathing room to be able to set up the travel crib in the tent.
Yeah, and have a room to change diapers.
Yeah, room to change diapers. Yeah. And it turned out to be a wonderful solution for us because we were able to set Cedar up in the travel crib in the tent, and then zip up the tent. And walk away from it and enjoy our campfire at nighttime. And that was, I think, the saving grace for our second trip, which is actually coming up in the next video with Cedar, which was actually 2 weeks after the bear encounter video. And then we also went back and did a third backcountry trip with Cedar last fall. And we did the same thing with Cedar in the travel crib, and both times worked really, really well. And even for naps as well, we were able to have some solid naps in the afternoon, where Cedar is tucked away in the tent in his travel crib, sleeping like a baby, and just like finally, you get to enjoy your moment of zen, as a parent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was really nice.
Yeah, it was really nice.
Man, that is so familiar to me.
Yeah.
That is so familiar.
Camping with children is like panicky chaos and then like zen. And then panicky chaos and then zen.
But I do want to say that it's nice in my case because we have a very young child, but we also have a 9-year-old who is fabulous with that young child. So like sometimes stuff will be happening and she sees that Clemence is getting bored or something and she just walks over and done, and
Wonderful.
I am eternally grateful to that child for helping out with that child without even having to be asked. Now
beautiful. That's awesome.
The unplanned part of that is the very young child's favorite person in the world is not one of her parents, but it's the older child. Heartbreak, maybe a little bit, but
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure Cedar likes his Grammy more than he likes either of us. So. She's definitely his favorite. And we come to pick him up, and he's like, "I don't want Grammy."
Yeah, go back.
Right.
Tips for the safety of a possible lost child. Example, writing your tent number on their arm. What age do you give them a whistle? I'll just say one thing, and then I'll let you guys handle that. Because we've had a lost child a couple of times, because Camille's like her daddy is a real wanderer. I don't think you should give your kid a whistle until they know what it's for. If you give your kid too young a child a whistle, they're just going to toot it, right? And when you're in the, out in the woods, a whistle means something. It's not a toy. Mm. So I don't think it's going to be helpful to give a very young child a whistle. I do love the idea of putting your campsite number or a cell phone number somewhere on that kid, even while they're with you, because there's all kinds of things. When I was a kid, man, it was the 70s, right? I was born in 1972. There was no cell phone. A kid got lost. You train that kid to find a police person or a mother with kids, right? That's the way I was brought up, right? If you get lost, find a mother with kids or a police officer. Nobody else, you know. We don't live in a world where those are your only options anymore. Even at a campsite, a lot of families around. I feel that as soon as your kid is old enough, you can train them to look for a family. Because I do still have that paranoia in me, right? Don't just walk up to any stranger. If you have to walk up to a stranger, best if they're wearing a uniform or it's a mother with kids or even a dad with kids, but don't just walk up to a, you know. But I don't know. I mean, you guys are obviously going to be thinking about this at some point soon. Cedar's not exactly the age where he's like, sayonara, folks, but
yeah,
you know.
he's kind of like within our sight at all times.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm not super qualified to answer this, but I do remember reading something about it in this book, which we wanted to just show you guys.
Yeah.
So it's called Babes in the Woods, and it's by Jennifer Aist. I don't know if you guys can see that.
I'm trying to make you guys the there we go.
Yeah. So I know that this has instruction or advice on how, like, safety, including lost kids. And I think something about tell your kid that if they get lost to, like, go and stand by a tree and stay there. I don't know if that makes sense. So that they're not wandering while you're trying to find them and you keep missing each other.
It really does, because look at how many, like, they probably mentions this in that book, how young kids, if they feel lost, they just run in a straight line, right? Very often. Or there was a case where I don't remember if it was Ontario, Quebec, somewhere. There was an autistic boy who disappeared, and they found him floating face down in a river because he'd run in a straight line and just went right into the water. You know, below a certain age, they're ambulatory, but they can't really reason yet.
Yeah.
And to me, in the woods, that's the most terrifying phase of their life.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
will say, so we've had Cedar outdoors enough, and when I say enough, a lot, to the point at which he feels very comfortable in the outdoors. So when we take him over to, like, the local forest and let him go free, he will just kind of wander off into the forest. So yeah, I guess it's really dependent on the kid. And if your kid feels really comfortable in the forest, then you have to be really careful about not letting them out of your sight.
Just a couple of people on the side chat here have called that the hug a tree.
Hug a tree. That's what it was.
Hug a tree, right?
And that's easy for them to remember.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, we're also lucky that Cedar, like, he likes to be near us. If we get too far away in the woods, he usually tries to come and find us or get us to come to him. So that makes it easier for us to keep track of him.
Yeah, I get that. Absolutely. Do you guys find that having him with you in the woods has changed the way you're developing your skill sets, your like outdoor skill sets in any way at all?
I feel like it shows me where I'm lacking, and that, like, I want to be like, that's this kind of tree, or that's that kind of plant.
Oh yeah, God, me
cool
too.
Outdoorsy stuff that I just never learned.
Yeah. I feel like whenever we're in the backcountry with Cedar, I feel like my, like, alert status as a mother is super heightened. Like, I'm just, like, constantly, like, on the lookout for things. And that's probably something that we don't feel when we're camping without Cedar. But I think that's a natural thing to go through.
No.
And I think what that has sort of taught me is, I think it is valuable to have a higher number of adults to baby ratio when you're in the backcountry. And, like, it certainly got easier for us. So our second and third trip with Cedar were easier. But I think that first backcountry trip that we did, I almost would have preferred to have gone with a grandparent and had somebody there an additional person there who could be just on complete baby duty for the first day or two, and we could tend to other things. And that's what Julie mentioned about earlier.
Yeah,
it takes longer, but
well, especially the setup and teardown parts, right?
yeah.
Like once that's done, you can kind of click into not really autopilot, but once the camp is set up, I find the stress is gone. I'm just living in the woods at that point. But even with a 9-year-old in tow, setting up and tearing down takes forever.
Yeah.
Daddy, how do I do this? Daddy, can you help me with this? I'm like, yes, of course I can help you with that. I'd like to go home now. But once everything is set up and Camille just sort of clicks into it. We're in camp. If I start cooking, she just sets the table, or if I set the table, she makes eggs or something. She's kind of almost equal with me when it comes to starting a fire with a ferro rod at this point.
Nice.
So we're finally at that stage where we can start divvying up little tasks and stuff. I'm still not going to let her start a fire without me hovering, right? But I will let her do it, and stuff like that. But even at that age, set up and tear down are drags.
Yeah, and I find with our latest experience was with a 1.5-year-old, and their setup and tear down is a lot. But then even just cooking, you can't really watch a 1.5-year-old in the woods and cook at the same time unless you put him in his travel crib.
Yeah.
But if he's wandering around, you kind of have to be with him. Or our last trip, he was playing by the water for an hour, and it was lovely and blissful. But I just sat there and watched him. Because every so often he'd tumble and I'd need to help him. It's.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's you kind of need at least a 2-to-1 ratio.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's funny because the last family camping trip that I have video of, because it was the last one we did 2 years ago now, where we were camping at Parc de Plaisance. It's essentially an island with a tiny causeway. Not a lot of forest, a lot of grassland, a lot of water around, which was going to be great, except that when we got there was a sign that you couldn't go into the water because of algae.
Oh, no.
Now, A, drag. B, so when my kids were playing next to the water, I made damn sure that Clémence didn't go tumbling into that water or even reach into it, right?
Or play in the water with their cup and pretend to drink it.
No freaking way. And it's funny because it's not the kind of thing that you think of when you're driving up for camping and your kids are both asleep in the back and you're like, camping. It was a stressor that I wasn't expecting because I'm used to the stressor of what Julia was saying, kids playing next to the water. I'm just going to sit here. If she tumbles in, I'll go. I'll pick her up. I'll dust her off. She'll play again. If there's algae in that water and they're saying don't go because it's toxic, I'm like, come on.
Yeah.
She can't even touch it?
Yeah. And then trying to explain that to your kid too.
Yep.
That sounds super stressful. I'm so sorry that happened to you guys.
But it's when I'm in the woods, and you guys are probably going to be exactly the same. Several things are in my sort of list. Top of which is I want everyone to be safe. Second of which, I want these kids to have a blast because I'm trying to, in a very gentle way, instill in them a love of the outdoors. I don't want to be like, you're going to learn to camp, you're going to learn to hike, you're going to learn to come on, shut up, Jesse. But if in a very gentle way, by taking them camping and showing them stuff and talking about the trees when they look at that, Daddy, and all this stuff. I read a book that the people who've been watching me forever have heard me talk about Last Child in the Woods a lot. But I've read a bunch of stuff on that. So I was interested in that book that you just showed. But one thing I learned is that if you can get your kid hooked on the woods or paddling or whatever, by the time they're 5, you're home free. Because they'll always have at least a latent interest, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's almost like going camping with your kids under 5 is an investment.
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
A lot of work. There's going to be some stressful moments. You may be exhausted. And there
will be exhausted.
But there will be moments. But it is an investment so that you can then be out with your 9-year-old just like backcountry camping, and they're like, I'm gonna go make eggs now.
Yeah.
Interesting little comment here. There's actually a couple of interesting comments. I just want to pop up a couple of them in quick succession. Shawnee says, I've been trying to come up with a meal plan that involves little cooking, because I agree. Pre-made snacks, cold lunches, warm supper when everyone is tired.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent way to up the safety. But I love cooking over a fire, and Camille loves cooking over a fire. You know, like there's an enjoyment factor that I feel I need. You know, and if you're good enough at doing this, you can keep it pretty safe. I don't know what you guys are thinking about that.
I think sometimes when you're rolling into your campsite and it's like 6 o'clock at night and your kid's exhausted and it's, like there are times where easy is like, especially with like really, really young kids.
Mm-hmm.
A tip that I heard from a friend is ordering a pizza on your way in, and then
wow,
for lunch, so that everyone is fully fed for day one, and then you often have like a little bit of leftovers for that night.
That is brilliant.
Also, she would do black bean cheese wraps. So you just open up a can of beans and you have some cheese and like maybe you fold it and like melt it over the fire.
Yeah.
But just something super simple.
You just made me think of something. But I just want to show Mallory's comment here. She says, I have one child who loves the outdoors and the other's just not into it. Getting her butt into gear to get dressed is so exhausting. I do it for the kids now because I don't enjoy myself. I think we all understand where you're coming from, Mal. But something you said, because I love that sort of the black bean and cheese wrap idea, or like I do like a quesadilla, slap, melt. Yeah. But here's the thing. Milk products will kill my younger daughter.
Ooh. Yeah, so, this is why I say this is advice from a friend, because I'm the same way.
Yeah.
Well, what we've been doing is, because this poor kid was born with, again, I'm probably boring a lot of the people in the side chat because they know about this, because I did at least one live stream after a trip to trauma. But we've been working with the Children's Hospital here in Montreal to, I don't know the word for it in English, but when they have an allergy and you get them past it.
Yeah.
Desensitization. That's the one. And so we've gone from a very severe egg allergy to she can eat any eggs.
Oh, wow.
Including raw. Okay. It took a long time, and I had a lot of really tearful visits to the hospital, because giving your kids something laced with something could take them out is awful.
Yeah.
But she's not in danger of egg anymore. And so we're doing the same thing with milk right now. We're about to do phase 2, which is cheese. The phases are like, there's like 12 phases. You're doing this for like a year and a half. But if by the end of this very stressful, horrible time, she's not allergic to either of these things anymore, I'm going to call that like the most epic win.
Mm-hmm.
Because
it's a win for the rest of her life too.
Hell yeah. So so many stressful parts of how are we going to feed this family on the road gone, right?
Yeah,
no problem. And I love like melted cheese and black beans and tortillas. I love that stuff. Yeah.
For us, we do a lot of Lara bars. I don't know if you use those, but they're just natural ingredients. Granted, it's still a fair amount of sugar, but at least it's natural ingredients, and Cedar loves them. And we also when we want a quick meal, just freeze dried, to be honest.
Yeah, for sure. And
We're true fans of Backpackers Pantry.
Yeah. Well, you can't beat the packability, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they taste really good.
Yeah. We have to say we are sponsored by Backpackers Pantry, but we
also have been eating them for 10 years before we got sponsored.
We were eating their food well before we got sponsored, but love that food. And also, like, what really worked for Cedar in the backcountry were those prepackaged baby meals.
Mm-hmm.
That was a huge win for us as well. So, like, I remember the first camping trip that we took him on with the bear, when we were like trying to move fast, and we're trying to get, like, we're all trying to eat before the light just goes completely black, and we ended up eating in the dark because it got dark so quickly. We essentially just took that prepackaged baby meal and didn't even really put it on the spoon, just kind of like
squeezed
it into Cedar's mouth, cleaned him up as best we could, took his clothes off, because anything that he ate food in, we removed from the situation and put into the barrel as well. But yeah, those prepackaged meals, very fast. And we brought a bunch of those for both trips. Actually, all 3 trips, I think, just because,
just easy. He's getting too old for them now, but I kind of miss them.
I kind of miss them too. Yeah, the convenience.
It's funny because this is only related to what we're talking about in a tertiary way, but I was cleaning up after supper tonight, and I had this flash of, I used to really like, I would make Clemence and before that we would make Camille her food as well. I would boil up a bunch of carrots and grind them up, and it took me all night, but when everyone was in bed, I would do this, and it was like this sort of Zen thing that I would do, and know that I was doing it for this kid who had no bloody idea that her food took this much work. And for some reason, man, I just loved it. It was this really calm time of night. I was the only one up. I was alone, and I was making food. Fairly often I'd be like, on other people's live streams and chatting as well, kind of thing. In fact, someone once said, "Man, every time I see you on somebody's live stream, you're making food." But I used to...
Jesse, I've seen you in a few other live streams where you're making tea, I think.
Yeah, tea is my thing. It's my main thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would just like to say, do you guys know Russell from Raspberry Rock?
I don't think so.
Okay, because he's been throwing me zingers all night. This is the kind of relationship that Russell and I have. I just want you to see what I have to deal with here. But yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, it wasn't going to be interesting. It would have bored Russell anyway, so you go first.
I was going to say another person to read about is Esther Kaiser. She was the first woman in the backcountry guiding in Algonquin Park. And we make reference to her in our video about taking Cedar out for his first trip as one of the inspirations behind taking Cedar at such a young age, because Esther took her kids before they could even walk. I'm pretty sure around the age of about 6 months or younger, into the backcountry as well. And I think it was really refreshing for us to, like, in this day and age, to read. It seems like taking kids that young is a bit of a polarizing topic sometimes in this day and age, but it was kind of refreshing to like read about Esther taking her kids into the backcountry and having a wonderful experience with it, and then going on from there to like read other parents' trip reports of taking their infants anywhere from 1 to 6 months old into the backcountry. It was really refreshing to hear other parents say that it was a really rewarding experience. And I think it's really important to mention that, like, even though our particular experience, even though we did a lot of planning and it didn't end up panning out the way that we hoped it would, I think it's really important that if a parent is thinking about doing this, number one, do a lot of planning, a lot of preparation, but also read some of the wonderful trip reports out there from parents who have wonderful things to say about their trips going really well. Because it's really heartwarming to read accounts from people like Esther and other parents online who've had wonderful experiences out there. So don't just watch our video and be like, I'm not going to do it. On the flip side, having thought about this topic a lot since our particular experience, I would say if it feels like, and the reason why I say this is because I feel like we all learn, we all continue to learn. We're all on a continuous learning path on our journeys with camping in the backcountry and camping with kids, etc. If you feel like you're at the steep end of the learning curve, like the really steep end in terms of the backcountry, that's an area where I would sort of caution people about taking their children into the backcountry with them. Maybe front country is okay, but backcountry, if you're at the beginning, like if you're at the steep end of the learning curve and you yourself are learning a lot every trip that you go on, that's maybe an area where I would caution people against not taking young.
Yeah, I would say if you're at that part, then bring your infant car camping.
Yeah.
Ease them into the woods, because what I have noticed in the age of COVID is that even young freaking kids pick up on the stress that they're experiencing through their parents.
Yeah.
So if you're in the woods, which is supposed to be this beautiful bucolic experience, and you're freaking out because you have bit off more than you can chew,
yeah,
the kids are sponges for that, right? And the last thing you want is to get injured or something out in the woods because I can do anything. No, you can't. Another thing is you don't want to start developing in your kid. See how I stuttered through all that? I'm going to take that again. Take two. Another thing you don't want to do is, I do that a lot these days. I'm getting a little brain foggy. You don't want to start developing in your child a sense of that kind of stress related to the outdoors.
Yeah.
Because then you're not going to have your kid out with you and having fun with your family, blah, blah, blah. But also you're instilling in the kid an aversion from something we need to get more of our kids involved in. There's all kinds of studies and stuff about how like everything from sick building syndrome for those of us who work in office towers when the world isn't ending to like I don't remember the word right now, but kids who grow up not getting any of that sort of interaction with nature.
Yeah.
What was the term? Yeah.
There's like a connection with nature.
It helps them in the head. It helps them in the soul. And so if you're biting off more than you can chew and packing your kids along, you're not doing them any favors.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
You're not helping them on that road that not enough kids get to go down anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So
there's plenty of ways to enjoy the outdoors safely, and we just think we have had a lot of experience backcountry camping, feel super comfortable with it, and feel good about taking Cedar on very short backcountry camping trips.
Yeah. I
call them mid-country, really.
Mid-country. Like everybody else, we continue to learn every time we go into the backcountry, but it feels like we're off the steep end of the learning curve, and we're sort of like, we're still learning over time, but like we're not going into the backcountry learning like huge swaths of information each time, and we're not like, there aren't large gaps in our knowledge other than maybe bears. But So I would recommend to people who are thinking about taking their children into the backcountry, like, if you feel like you're at the steep end of the learning curve and you yourself are learning a lot about the outdoors, that's sort of a time where you should maybe contemplate, and it's so hard to say, because like it's not really for me to say, but like that is one area of the curve where I would caution people about taking children into the backcountry. But yeah, if you feel like you're further along on that curve and your things are flowing and your trips are going off without a hitch and you're getting into the swing of things and you're starting to pick up on like the nuances of camping and things like that, then that might be right for you to take your kids into the backcountry. But
yeah, because everyone's got a different learning curve, right? Like the learning curve for you guys is not the basic backcountry stuff. It's the how do we take all this experience and mold it around this tiny human who fundamentally needs us to keep him safe. Yeah. But exactly. Chris, something you said I wanted to touch on, because you said that bringing these very small humans out into the woods can be somewhat polarizing.
Yeah.
And I will very briefly touch on this because otherwise I'll go the hell right off on it. But man, everything you do as a parent of a young person is polarizing to somebody. Yeah. And like you guys, I know are getting this. I get this. And I'm sure that at least 2 or 3 people in the side chat get this. So I say, for all of us, for all of our emotional and mental health, pay no attention. Do what you feel. Do what you feel is safe based on the knowledge you have, and you will be okay. If it's because so many people get all messed up over what their mother says or their dad says or the neighbor over there or the this or that, man, forget about it. They're not your child's parent. You are. To everyone watching who has kids and has dealt with the same feeling that I know that the 3 of us know very, very well, they're not your child's parent.
Yeah. And really, all parents are different. All kids are different. What works for one kid doesn't necessarily work for another kid. What works for one family doesn't necessarily work for another family. So yeah, you just need to make your decisions based on you and use your best judgment.
Yeah.
Anywho, I had only meant to come on for 10 minutes. It's now almost 10 o'clock at night, and I have to be up early for work tomorrow. So I'm gonna go, but you'll stick around. Okay.
All right. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah. This was fun.
Great to meet you.
Great.
All right.
But yeah, Julie brings up a really good point, and just thanks for talking about it. And it's nice to know that we're not the only ones, and you notice it as well. And there's so many people out there that will armchair quarterback, and say coulda, shoulda, woulda. But at the time, like with our own experience, the first camping trip that we did with Cedar, we made the best decision we felt we could at the time. I can guarantee you, YouTube did not factor into our decision to stay. It just felt, at the time, it felt really unsafe to paddle at night. And so we made the absolute best decision we could with the knowledge and experience we had at the time. So.
And at the end of the day, even when you're a couple of strapping adults with no kid in tow, trying to navigate out of a situation in the dark can be terrifying no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And
so like personally, I have my bronze cross, I have my bronze medallion, I have my swimmer's my instructor's level swimming certification as well. I've trained to perform rescues at nighttime in the dark. And I can tell you, like, it just becomes like infinitely much more difficult to perform at nighttime, especially when you haven't done it with an infant before. And so I think that sort of played into my evaluation of risk at the time as well. It was like, like I think some people who told us that we should have paddled out in the dark, they themselves don't understand how difficult it is to perform a rescue in the dark, in the water, in the event of a capsize. I'm not saying we would have capsized, but it's just like
anything's possible.
Anything's possible, yeah. And at the time, we sort of felt like if a light mist, a light puff of the bear spray was enough to send it back into the forest, that 2 full cans of it certainly would as well. So
yeah,
hindsight's 2020. Knowing what we know now, we probably would have attempted to paddle out in the dark, but at the time, we didn't. Yeah.
For me, I learned to swim at the ripe old age of like 8 years ago.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And it's, again, some of my peeps here know this story, but we were at a family party, like a pool party or something, and they had one of those in-ground pools that's like shallow and then foop goes. And Camille at this point was like, she was running, she might have been 2, maybe 3. She was in swimming lessons, so she knew enough not to be afraid of the water, but not enough to swim yet. And for some reason, her older cousin was wearing her little floaties, and they were running around the pool, and I was the only one in the pool. And I was right at that point where it goes from shallow to disappearing. And her cousin just ran and jumped into the deep end, and Camille just didn't even stop to think. And I just saw her go fetal position in the bottom of the pool.
Oh, wow.
Blank space, holding her out of the water by a foot while my brother-in-law grabbed her and said, "No, no, no," and tried to calmly tell her that what she did was wrong. And then I sort of, my sister-in-law came over and I said, I can't swim. And I took a walk, fell all the way apart, and then called the next morning and got swimming lessons.
Wow.
I don't enjoy swimming. I don't like it. But I really felt the need to do that. So to me, the idea of paddling out from your situation in the dark, if you had decided to do that and that had been on screen, I would have had those, that feeling you get at the back of your neck when you know there's a ghost behind you or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because to me, I would not be safe enough to. I would take my chances with the bear as well. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. Granted, so we, after having done the Venus Link last summer, and the camping trip with Cedar was the summer before, actually, but having done a lot of paddling in the dark for the Venus Link last year, I will say we do feel differently about paddling in the dark now, because we feel like we've got some more experience under our belts. But at the time, we hadn't. And like the feeling that you talk about, like that feeling, that risky feeling, like it's just getting into a canoe and paddling with a baby that young, knowing that it's going to be pitch black in about a half hour, did not sit well at the time. It's just like, I couldn't stomach it. I mean, as I mentioned before, like if the encounter had happened maybe an hour earlier, I think we would have, in all likelihood, made an honest attempt to get out as quickly as possible. But yeah, that paddling in the dark at the time just did not feel safe.
Well, and if you're hurrying, you might make a mistake, right?
Yeah.
It's like, Grace says, went camping recently with a friend and his 7-year-old son who was warned not to fall into the nearby creek. What do you think he did? Yep, soaking wet from the waist down. My sister has a daughter and a son. And when her daughter was born, had a kid and all this. When her son was born, the doctor said, okay, you got a boy now. If you can keep him alive until 5, you're good to go. And I mean, I have 2 daughters, right? So I have no idea, but I do. I know I don't have memories, but I have been told that as a young child, I was a going concern. So I'm not surprised by Grace's story here. That's the wrong time of year to fall into a creek, even where Grace is. I don't remember where, but yeah. Hope they had a nice fire. I'm thinking maybe I'll open up the floor to see if anyone wants to come on and ask questions or anything, because you don't know how much longer you can hang out with us, right?
I'll hang out for another 20-25 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So if anyone wants to come on and tell a brief story, ask a quick question, stay on subject, don't talk about guns or politics, then feel free to come on. Look, I got to control these peeps because I have had live streams go so far off the rails before that I didn't even know where the rails were. So, but I feel on interview night or panel discussion night, I like to keep it really sort of on subject.
Yeah. And while we're waiting for other people to come on, I will also recommend people should also check out Tori and Jim Baird's video about taking their little one into the backcountry as well. Your video on that?
I wanted Tori to come on, but she's in the Yukon right now, so she said, can't really do it from up here.
Yeah,
have a great live stream. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, she's doing really cool things up there. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I would love to see the North. I would love it. I lost my chance. My brother was flying for First Air for a while, so he was living up in Yellowknife. I said, "Come on up. You know, everything's expensive, but you can sleep in the bathroom," because he and a couple of other guys were sleeping in like this, living together in this house. But I never got the money together for the flight. But I should have done it. I want to see the North like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
Like. Not in February necessarily, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Jesse, you were telling me that you're planning for a camping trip this summer.
Next for I'm always planning for a camping trip in the summer, but my big trip will be the next year because that'll be I'm turning 50 that year.
Okay, you do not look like you're turning 50.
Cutting it all off means you can't see the gray.
Oh.
No, I get that all the time. I don't really know if 50 is that old. I grew up with a mother who was terrified of turning 30 and then was terrified of turning 40 and then realized that 40 wasn't the end of the world.
Right.
But when she turned 40, I was at the age where everything, like, I was interacting with the world in a logical and thinking fashion. And like my dad and his wife are both in their 70s. My mom is too. She's like 75 or something. And my dad and his wife are still very spry, very active, very sort of, and so I don't really know if 50 means anything.
Yeah. Well, if it doesn't mean anything to you, then don't even give it a second thought. Yeah.
I want to mark it with an epic trip and a brilliant canoe.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I like to mark the decades. Like I marked 40 with, again, I'm going to bore my buddies here, but I got this for myself for my 40th birthday.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Until I bought this house, this was the most expensive thing I had ever bought.
Wow.
Okay. This is nice Swift Canoe money. Okay.
Yeah.
I saved up for 6 years for it, and like I see the decades as being something to celebrate in kind of a fun way rather than turning 50. What am I going to do? Who cares? I'm going to be the same person on May 22nd of that year as I was on May 19th,
Yeah.
And but I do like to sort of mark these things.
Yeah.
So big trip, hopefully with a nice sweet canoe.
And your trip is in where? Remind me again.
It's Parc La Vérendrye. Now,
Okay.
I haven't actually announced this to my viewers yet, by the way.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry, because I remember you. I remember you talking about this on Instagram.
Yeah.
And it was so funny because I automatically, my brain is just like always thinking about Algonquin Park. So I made the mistake of thinking that you were camping in Algonquin Park.
Well, I think that when I first started speaking, like I spoke to you about it briefly, because what I did was I spoke to the 3 people whose opinions I know are solid. So I spoke to you, I spoke to Martin Pine, and I spoke to Kevin.
Right.
Because you got to speak to Kevin, right?
Yeah.
And like Kevin and Martin were guys that I'm comfortable just sort of calling up out of the blue because they've both been on my live stream like a million times, and I've spoken to them before. You, I just kind of knew would be okay with it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know?
Well, I think I popped into one of your live streams before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I figured, because I had originally wanted to do like the Yukon River and stuff like that, but I'm not experienced enough as a paddler to do something that epic, right? So I kind of dialed myself back to something that would be safer. I found a route at Vérendrye that is light on obstacles, shall we say? Like, unless a surprise pops up. Right now, the park is closed due to weather and COVID and everything. So, like, every time I ask them a question, it takes 2 weeks for them to get back to me. Because I remember you pinged me and said, "So, anything going on that?" And I was like, "Yeah, I don't know. I asked them a question 3 weeks ago."
Yeah.
But whatever. And at the end of the day, look, if COVID takes me out of the outdoors for another year, I'll just put it off. Do you know what I'm saying? I'll just put it off for a year. Because I do want to do it the year after I do a lot of paddling.
Right.
Because I'm safety minded. So, you know. But
I will say the absolute, well, I think one of my favorite things about doing the Venus Link last summer was the fact that for about 6.5 days, completely forgot about COVID. Completely forgot about it. And that alone was worth it. Like, my goodness, like, it was just like, and when I say completely forgot about it, it's like I actually sort of forgot the world was in the middle of a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And that was wonderful. It kind of reminded me that, like, like, it's not the end of the world. There is a way to reclaim your sanity in this craziness, and just knowing that existed was huge for me.
Yeah, it's funny that because you're reminding me of something that Russell. All right. Hi, Russell. How's it going?
Hey, Russell.
Hi, Chris.
I'll just finish my point, and then we'll involve Russell a lot more in the convo. Martin, Martin Pine asked me something once, because I very often say that I like to hit the outdoors because it's cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
And he said, "Is that real? Like, do you really do that to keep your head screwed on straight?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I'm not just being funny." And so it was funny that what you said about, you're out there, you forget about COVID, hey, Mal, and like everything is fine. Because I can see that. I like you talking about that, and I feel it happening. You know?
Yeah. I think what I find myself trying to convey to people really frequently is that, like, you sort of see this topic pop up in social media, or you hear like a prominent YouTuber talk about how they're kind of fed up with social media, or it's like really getting to them, and they're kind of stressed out about like things like FOMO and like getting likes and all, like, just feeling overwhelmed by social media.
Yeah.
And I find myself thinking or trying to communicate the same narrative each time, which is like, if you're feeling these things, like, if you get outdoors and you get off the grid in a place where you couldn't even access those things, even if you wanted to,
Hmm.
after you push past about 2 days of withdrawal, by about the third day, you start to feel amazing.
Yeah.
And then day 4, you're like starting to get into a rhythm. Day 5, you're feeling like just fantastic. Day 6 of no social media, no internet, no notifications, none of that. Like I feel like I'm thinking more clearly than at
Yeah.
any other point in my life in recent history or in recent time. And trying to convey that to people who aren't experiencing that, I find is really difficult. Like it's really difficult to like convince people if you like unhook, if you get off the grid for at least like 3 days, you're gonna feel great. Just you have to push past the withdrawal.
Yeah, I buy that. And it's funny because Mal was saying that she's sort of getting a little, what was the word you were using? Burnt out? Little social burnt out, that you kind of wanted
No,
to take a break?
I didn't get social media burnt out. I got burnt out from the work on the farm. It's just that social media was like my outlet to help me get through it.
Okay.
But I did recently go to the off-grid cabin for 3 nights. And honestly, 3 days was my max. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, I was searching for something to do, and I didn't bring like an instrument or something to like. I just had the kids, so I just went to bed at 8 o'clock every night with the kids, and I was like,
Oh, I would so do that. You know,
that's all I did.
when I used to go hunting in the Gaspé for moose, we were so far out there that, first of all, the night sky was glorious, but there was no signal. So I would spend 2 days of like, what the Christ? I hope everyone hasn't forgotten about me. And then I would spend like another week and a half of absolute bliss. But it's funny, I would come back, and as soon as there was a signal, I'd be boop. Like, why did I just do that? Why did I just do that? And then I'm like scrolling through my stuff. It's like, what the hell? You know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I will add, just because that sort of pinged my mind a little bit, was I find if we go backcountry camping and we stay in the same spot, like I find that I will kind of get a little bit bored after a day or two.
Mhm.
But for me, like the best backcountry trips are the trips where we maybe stay max a day, like a max one rest
And
day,
then, yeah.
right?
And then you move.
When we move and we keep moving, and that progress is what I love. I love seeing what's around the corner.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, it just feels so good to not have any notification, any
Yeah.
email of any kind. Like it's just
You know, when you're busy and you're staying active, it's good. But like when you're too long at the same, like I am too creative. I am too like I have to be doing something at all times. I can't
Get a
just
little
like sit
antsy.
down. Yeah, I can't sit down for like 2 days and do nothing. I have to do something.
Well, it's funny because, Chris, I'm with you. I have to see what's around the next bend. And one thing that really brings that out to me is I used to, my old stomping grounds are Vancouver. I used to spend half the year there and half the year in Montreal, thanks to the magic of parental divorce. But whenever we'd be camping in BC, like for the longest section of my life, all my camping was done there. And like I would stand on the side of a mountain and look at, and you know how the mountains there, like mountain, and they sort of turn into this light blue as they go into the distance.
yeah.
Right. And like just forever of billowy white clouds. And I would want, like, part of me would like yearn
Yes.
to see all the way over there.
Yeah.
Yearn to see what's going on, the 100th cloud down kind of thing. But I can sit in one spot for 2 days. One day to set up and blah blah blah, and one day to just like, I smell the boreal forest.
Yeah.
And then I want to go around the bend. I want to see the next lake over.
I'm curious. I have a question for Chris. Do you live out in the woods or do you live in the city?
I live in the city, so we live in Kingston actually. Yeah.
And where?
Okay.
Kingston.
Oh, I thought you were in Toronto.
No, this is a common thing. A lot of people seem to think that we're from Toronto. I think what typically happens is we hop in the car and we head down the 401, and then we start heading north when we get to Belleville. But I think some people see us driving down the 401 sometimes in our videos. Like I'll put a few clips in it, and then you automatically think 401 Toronto.
But also, look, as soon as someone says filmmaker in Canada, everyone thinks Toronto, right?
Right.
That's true.
I will say I'm originally from Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario, so I was born in the Sioux, and then my family moved us from the Sioux to Kingston when I was, I think when I was about 7. So
Okay.
yeah.
So Chris, do you go up Highway 37 or 61 or 62?
Is 30? Oh, 62. 62.
So you go through Madoc
Maybe maybe I'm thinking that's wrong actually.
or Tweed?
No,
I'm right near there. You live like that way, about 45 minutes.
Oh, okay, cool. We usually head west on the 401, and then when we get to Belleville, that's where we start heading north. Yeah. I can't remember if that's 62 or.
It's probably 62 if you're going up to Algonquin. Yeah.
Cool.
I guess.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I guess I was just wondering because like I see a lot of you guys like in the chat too, like you guys want to go out to the, camping and stuff. And I'm just here like, man, I go out in my backyard and it's like pure Canadian wilderness,
Yeah.
and like smelling the boreal forest and everything like you were saying. And I was like, man, like I like to go back to the days where I was in the city and dreaming about it. And now that I'm here like all the time, it's like the dream is like faded,
But that
I
happens
live it
wherever
every
you
day.
go, though. Yeah. Wherever you are, it's like you don't understand. I speak to people who are like, "Oh man, you live in Montreal. It's so cool. It's so European. It's so this." I'm like, "Yeah, but okay, I live here, and the grass is all." Oh, shut up, Jesse. People are always gonna like where they're not.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I remember, man. Like in 2001, I took my girlfriend at the time to France, and Paris was great and glorious and terrible, but we went to Nantes, and I was like, I could move here tomorrow, but if I did move there tomorrow, would it still be as bloody amazing as I thought it was? Hell no, because we're all wanderers at heart, right? Whether we're wandering or not, we all want what Chris was talking about and what I was talking about. We always want to see all the way down that bunch of mountains. We want to see what the mystery is that you can hardly see because it's so far away that it's misty.
I'll tell you what, I'm that way too. I like seeing what's around the next corner. But I'm in a position right now that I love. I've been here for 4 years, and I haven't gotten tired of it. I'm going to tell you right now, Jess, you might find that one spot one day where you don't want to leave.
Okay, so is that... Because I think that to a certain extent, that's what we're all looking for. But you know how we keep telling ourselves that it's the journey rather than the arrival. That's the main thing. I never know if that is a universal truth or if that is just so many people never finding where they wanted to be, that they're just making it okay, that they're just settling. You know what I'm saying?
Oh man, I found my dream place, and I love this farm, right? Like I was just talking about, like, I used to love camping a lot, and now it just sort of faded because I live in the wilderness,
in the woods. Yeah,
that's what I was saying. But like, so the camping is just lessened now, but I love where I live. I would not move.
Where's your off-grid cabin, Mel? Sorry,
it's
Jess.
2 hours and a half away from. It's a Lac Mégantic.
I don't know where that is. Is it north?
Where's Lac Mégantic?
I'll tell you what. If you lived in Quebec, you'd know exactly where Lac Mégantic was. Because that was like the biggest story in the province for a long bloody time.
The biggest explosion. There was a train. We're gonna derail of this live stream if we talk about this.
Yeah, we're not gonna. But
you know what that's like? It's like if you lived in the UK, you'd know exactly who Bob is. Bob, Bob.
No. Yeah, well,
My neighbor Bob. Yes, come on.
Yeah.
Just
But
a massive train explosion, many deaths a few years back. That's where
Sorry,
Lac Mégantic
I don't
is.
mean to make light of that. I just
Yeah.
if you look here, you'd know. Anyway, sorry.
I will say that I was a single dad for 6 months because of Lac Mégantic. That's all I'm going to say about that. But my wife was a very busy person. But Russell, where you are is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah.
It is.
I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. Like, to me, I'm in a position in my life and family where I can't up and move like that. You know, I could work from anywhere. I'm a tech writer for a large tech company. We have people, especially right now, we have someone who's living in the Yukon, in the Northwest Territories and working because it's all telework, right? But my wife sure as hell can't. And I don't ever want to be at the point where I get blasé about the outdoors. You know, so Russell, I know you love where you are because it shows in your videos.
I mean, look at that disco
stuff.
ball. Look at it.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But like, I wonder if I got the opportunity to move out there and watch my little kids running around. Because Mal, I wanted to contact you about tonight and have you and Julia and Chris sort of compare notes about having young kids in the outdoors, because on a homestead, they're in the outdoors a whole lot. And you know, what kind of things are similar versus different. But you know, I figured you had said that you were sort of detaching from YouTube a bit.
Yeah.
So it's nice to see you on screen.
Yeah.
But like, if that thing about, you know, we always want the fourth mountain down, I wouldn't want that to happen while I'm sitting the fourth mountain down. You know what I'm saying?
I think.
Yeah, you wanna soak it in for a little bit, and then you want to go explore.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Can we talk about kids for a sec? Because you all have young kids, right? My kids are all older, and they're in their 20s now. And as much as I love my kids to death, and they're the world to me, but it is so nice when they're on their own. They're not your dependents anymore, and you can do things like I'm doing and not have to worry about, you know, a little kid running around and did he fall in the water and.
Don't rub it in, Russell.
Yeah, come on, Russ. But you know what?
No, but what I'm saying though, Jess is, you're saying you couldn't do this kind of lifestyle right now because essentially you're tied down. But maybe one day when you're 70, how old are you now? 56, 57?
Come on.
I'm 23 American, okay? I do want to say hi to Dennis.
Hey, Dennis.
If there's anyone here who is not subscribed to Dennis, just go and do it. Just go and do it. It's worth it. And he had an epic live stream that I was watching for as long as I could tonight. It was fabulous. I really liked it. It was about axe safety, and you guys know me. I'm all about the axes. I wanted to be on his live stream, but you know, we're on the same night. But anyway, so Dennis, nice to see you around. That was fabulous. I'm going to watch the rest of it tomorrow.
Yeah.
I wanted to add something to what Mel mentioned about losing, like, the backcountry maybe being diminished by her experience of where she is.
Yeah.
And, like, to be honest with you, like, so we, like, a 5-minute walk away from us, we have a large forest right beside us, where we have a big chunk of outdoor space that we can take seats. And if I'm being entirely honest, like, I think I've probably gone on 1,000 walks through that forest.
Yeah.
And I will say, like, I'm kind of sick of that forest. Like, I'm just like, some days the thought of just taking another walk through it is super, super boring. But I think what I love about Algonquin is it's so big that, and there are so many different permutations through different portages that I feel like you could almost spend a lifetime backcountry camping in that park. and just still not see everything. And
Yeah.
so I think that's what keeps me going back. And for me, that exploring is what has not diminished it for me. I love exploring
That's
and
cool.
finding like the really cool like little hidden gems.
Yeah.
Beaten path. Yeah.
Yeah,
Well-
that happens here too a lot. Like we will go out snowshoeing and we'll find a place, and every season is different too, you know. So you can go in the wintertime and it's different. You go in the spring, and then in the fall with the colors and everything. And like we have 200 acres, and I have not seen my whole property yet. But it's just all the work that's involved on being on this property, sort of, you know. It's like it
Takes up your day.
It's every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the same way here. We have 180 acres, and all the properties around us. There's nobody around, so it's
Yeah.
hundred.
That sounds amazing.
I don't know. And there's always new pockets that we discover, and it's just it's wonderful.
Yeah.
Sorry, Jess, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I was gonna say something. Chris made me think of something, but I've forgotten it because you both said, "Yeah, 200 acres, 100
sorry.
and I'm like,
She was talking about Algonquin Park.
Oh, yeah.
Being
right. What I wanted to say, yes, thank you, Mel. Thank
Good
you
job.
for keeping me. I haven't been to Algonquin yet. It's still to me this thing sitting there that I want to see one day, and then probably see again. Like I've seen maps of it. Its name holds a real weight in the community of Canadian outdoors people and some American outdoors people too. I mean, if Ethan was here, he would be talking about it. But I still never been there, and it's far enough away that it would take a lot of planning and permissions for me to do that trip.
Yeah.
but at the same time, we have so many beautiful parks here in Quebec. Like beautiful
closer
parks.
to get to, the reason I picked La Vérendrye is that I could go for like 7 days and not take another 2 days on either side getting there and then back and being exhausted, right?
Yeah.
It's sort of in the Outaouais region a little bit, so sort of close to Ottawa, right? Gatineau. Not that far. I can go there, spend a lot of days being by myself in the woods and happy, and then come back.
Yeah.
And I don't blow another day because I've been exhausted from 7 hours on the road kind of thing.
Yeah.
But man, like there are look at some of the places Joe Robinette's gone, right? He went up to Woodland Caribou. That's a park I would love to see one day, but holy crap, that's far.
It's
right?
north.
Well, yeah, it's in Ontario, but the other side, it's like right up against Manitoba.
Okay.
And it's up there too. So it's like we live in a country with so much absolutely glorious space, but we also live in a country that's freaking enormous. So getting to some of that glorious space is like, well, okay, that's a plane.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. I keep on telling Ben, like, when the day that our kids are going to be gone and we're going to feel like, okay, we've raised our kids right and everything, and the day that we retire from our farm, I think we're going to be like avid van lifers or like living in a schoolie or something, and just, I don't know. Like when my horse dies, I don't think I'm going to replace him. Like I'm expecting him to live very, very long, but I don't know if I'm going to get a newer horse. Or just up and leave and explore,
What about you, Russell? Like, are you retiring to that little spot you're living in? That little spot happened? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much retired now, except for this YouTube thing. And my wife retires in 4 years. So, and she wants to live here too, which is amazing. Absolutely.
Russell, I think you're older than I think that you look.
I'm 51.
Really?
Yep.
And you're retired?
Well, I'm doing this YouTube thing.
My YouTube thing ain't even paying for itself, so shut up.
I made when I was in the solar power business, I made some very good investments.
Okay.
I've paid off, or they pay me like an annuity, and they will end one day. But that's how I afford this lifestyle.
Okay.
And my wife still has a great job.
Yeah.
Right. Chris, when you reach, well, I don't know, you're a filmmaker, so are you going to retire?
Probably not.
Probably
No,
not, eh?
no.
But like, do you have plans to sort of move out into the woods one day, or are you pretty solid doing it the way you're doing it now?
So we lived we actually lived before we moved to the house that we are at right now. We lived pretty much like on like the main drag through Kingston, which was Princess Street, and I can remember when we were thinking about moving into a house and we were gonna move out of the apartment that we were in. We were thinking about moving out into the country, but I think what stopped us from doing that was we knew we were going to have pretty young kids, and we sort of wanted our kids to be able to play with some other really young kids as well. And so we really wanted to have like a tighter community with us, and that's sort of why we decided to go
Okay.
with we live in the burbs, but yeah, I don't know. I think we're really happy with where we are, so I can't see us moving. Somebody else in our family, I won't mention who they are, ended up moving a little further out of the city, and I think they really missed the tight sense of community that they had, like just their neighbors across the street and things like that. And so I think because we know that we're sort of similar to those people, that we might not do, we might not fare as well off in the country. And I totally respect that it's perfect for some people, but I don't think it's right for us.
Yeah, the social aspect is so much more important than a lot of people think. I mean, I used to live in a part of town called Point St. Charles, and it was one of those very walkable neighborhoods. That was also a walk, like just cross the canal and walk up the hill and you're downtown. Mal, I'm sending you this, okay?
Yes.
Because while you were typing, okay? Just get me your address later and I'll
I'm
package
typing
this up.
very slowly saying sorry.
Okay. Shock mount.
Send it to me.
Yeah, I will.
Trial version.
Ah, man, that's never gonna get old, is it?
Trial version.
Chris, one time we were doing this, and someone who comes on sometimes came on and was using the trial version of his audio software or something. So it took us a minute to figure out why everyone would be talking and suddenly trial version.
It was like every 20 seconds or something like that.
Yeah. It was often.
But it was so funny.
It was. And then I left and I turned off my camera and I came back and like he was long gone and I came back and I was like, trial version. And it just
and it sounded exactly like it. So Russell and I were both wait a minute. We're both like about to accuse each other. And then she pops back on he. We're like
oh my gosh. I think that night I think I just about pissed my pants. I laughed so hard. Oh my gosh. I was so tired.
That's the way we all end up at the end of one of my live streams. Everyone's about ready for bed.
Yep.
Yeah, I think we're really comfy with where we are at the moment. And Cedar's got kids that are his age right across the street and just like a few doors down, and so it feels like he's going to be able to grow up, just being able to run out the door and play with his friends. I think
that's so important too, right?
Yeah.
I have a friend at work who grew up rural enough that he's a little bit younger than me, and when he was a kid they had one of those big wood burning ranges, with the ovens and the stovetop, like a wood burning stove but huge.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, sounds amazing. He's like, are you kidding me? I had no friends. Because like it took him an hour to get to school.
Yeah.
And so like to me, all my sort of dreams of letting slip the bonds of urban life and moving off into the trees, it's all after my kids are like solidly on their own 2 feet, because I wouldn't do that to one of my kids now. Especially, man, how to put this? Camille is very, very social. If I took her away from the opportunities she has to be social with her little friends and stuff, I mean, yeah, they all talk to each other on their iPads anyway, but it's not the same, right? That poor kid was tail spinning at the end of her isolation last week, even though she could talk to her friends on their iPads. So it's like, to me, any thought of moving out there happens after my kids are gone.
Yeah.
Because I'm not the only one that I would have to think about.
Yeah.
With that kind of discussion, especially because I don't think the missus would be willing to, uproot and go out into the woods either. She has to get to Old Montreal every day for work.
What about when she retires? Do you think is that sort of her dream too, or is that only your dream?
I think our dreams are not necessarily compatible, but they're not completely different.
Yeah.
I really don't want to. Look,
I was just curious. Sorry. I had to ask. Sorry.
You're going to tie her up and go, okay, honey, this is our new life.
Yeah, that would go over well.
You'll learn to like it. Come on.
When she and I are dreaming about getting away for a couple of weeks, I would love to see Sweden do some camping. I would love to see Iceland do some hiking. She would love to see Dominican Republic do some beach.
Yeah.
There's a lot of negotiation.
See, Jess, we were exactly the same way. Like when my wife thinks of getting away, she wants to hit a beach in the Caribbean. In fact, it doesn't really matter what island, just wants to hit a beach. Mm-hmm. So it's absolutely amazing that she wants to retire here. Like she never camped in her life before she met me.
Really?
It can happen. I'm just saying and I get told this all the time. Like people say, "Oh, I would love to live like that, but my wife would never go for it." And I say, "Well, my wife would never have gone for it either, but she changed her mind."
Well, you decided to build a cabin in the woods, and even though your wife's soul is in the city.
Exactly right. She knew I wanted to buy property for a long time, and then I bought it, and I said, "Gee, I'd really like to build a cabin there." And she said, "Yeah, go ahead." So I built a cabin, and I was thinking, well, we might come here together every once in a while, just hang out, and look how things have changed. She came here and said, "Wow, it's gorgeous here. This is really nice."
Yeah,
and she wants to live
here. I love the lighting in the background of your place.
The Christmas lighting? The Christmas.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Russell, do you feature your cabin in your videos, or?
Yeah.
Okay. Can you drop it in the comments?
I'm gonna put a link to My Self-Reliance in here.
I'll try to get it.
I don't know if Russell can, but
Russell,
I'll try not to clunk, you guys.
Sorry, Russell, do you have a dog?
I have 2 dogs.
And you've talked about My Self-Reliance in your videos before, right?
I have, yeah.
Now I'm connecting it. Sorry, it took me a moment to connect the place to the videos that I've seen in the past. So yeah, no, you're rocking it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
He talks about Sean James a lot.
The Christmas lights, I put those up there as kind of a joke one day, and then I just love them now. They're like little night lights.
Yeah. Yeah. And when Russell does his live stream at a certain time of night, he turns on that disco ball.
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. 10 o'clock. The disco ball comes on.
Good thing. Got a remote control.
Are you kidding me?
I live in an off-grid cabin, but I've got a remote control disco ball. I've got a 4D TV.
I got some remote controls too. See, I changed that this week.
Yes, I noticed that.
Got a few.
Mine's not remote control. Look at us. We're all spending money on our on-screen personas.
My neighbor gave it to me. My
Okay.
neighbor gave me these lights.
Well, some of us did have to spend money on her. Oh yeah, Chrissy's turning on that disco ball for you, I think.
Nice. That's awesome.
Russell has Friday live streams and he puts on music and we all drink and in the chat and it's pretty funny.
Nice.
You know what Russell's disco ball reminds me of? I don't know if I told you, Chris. No, I told someone else. On Friday, we celebrated Camille's freedom by setting up a dance party for her and her sister in the living room. And we have a very small disco ball. And so we put that up where the sun was coming in the window.
Yeah.
And we let them turn up the music. And the wife and I just ran downstairs to actually get some work done and just let the kids dance. And so now when I'm seeing that disco ball of Russell's, I'm remembering sneaking upstairs and seeing my kids with the disco ball going around and having the ball.
Nice.
Disco balls are awesome. Everyone should have one. Chris, I actually bought one and sent it to Sean James. I was like, you got to have one of these in your cabin. And he gave it to his sister.
Oh my god.
If that ever goes up in one of his videos, I'm going to be like, Russell wins.
Right?
I don't think that's ever going to see the light of day.
No, he gave it to his sister.
Did he?
Wow. Russell and Mel, I'm curious to know, what is the process like trying to get internet connections out to your places?
Well, I got really, really lucky. The first year that I was here, I was on ExploreNet on satellite. And then the government had a huge grant and wanted to get internet in everybody's houses. So I got fiber optic. Like I'm on Wi-Fi right now. Like I got super good internet. I got really lucky.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I also got really, really lucky. I had no thoughts of internet when I moved here, or sorry, when I bought the property, and it turns out there's a Bell and a Telus cell tower like 5 kilometers that way, so I get phone service right across my property. And then I also called ExploreNet, and they have an LTE tower about 4 kilometers that way. I just was insanely lucky.
Wow.
And LTE is way better than satellite. Way better.
Yeah, satellite sucks because it costs so much. You rack up the bills as soon as you go over 100 gigs a month. Man, the bill just goes crazy.
And then Starlink's coming, so I'll get that as soon as I can.
Have you signed up, or are you waiting to see?
I've signed up and I've put down my deposit, $129. So.
Wow.
So, Chris, you know what Starlink is?
Yeah, Joe Robinette just got Starlink actually.
He got it finally?
Yeah.
Cool.
It's been working for him. Yeah.
That's going to change his life, man.
Yeah,
because
he had to go out to do his uploading and everything. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I spent my whole first year just recording, and I didn't do any uploading because of that. So I have a whole bunch of footage, unused footage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on.
Dennis,
man.
Why are you giving him $5 for my live stream?
Yes, it's the only way I can afford the beer for while I'm watching your live stream. I got to come up with sort of I don't find it very funny. I got to come up with some. I was watching. There's on my other channel. I'm hooked into a lot of Whiskey Tube, and I was watching. There's this channel called It's Bourbon Night, and when they're doing their live streams, and someone gives them a super chat, they ring a cowbell or something. I got to come up with something. Not quite so bourbony for when someone does that for me, because
I was watching a live stream today, and the guy, he's like a drone reviewer, okay, and like he's really, really good. And then he started setting up his thing, and he's got a button he pushes, and a song comes on, and he like does this like a funny dance with his glasses, and it was really cool. I was like, wow, that is really cool.
Don't think I would go quite that far. Just something.
Still,
what I used to do was at the end of my live streams, I have an axe head that is old, so it's got really good quality metal, and I would like ting it, I think to say goodnight or something. Maybe I'll do that. I kind of don't want to have an axe head so close to these monitors, though. I fear the damage. But anyways, yeah, we're coming down the home stretch. We're at 11 minutes to shutting it down.
Oh, let me grab another beer.
Yeah, you better move on that. If anyone has any more questions for Chris or anyone at this point who's on the live stream, drop them down there or come on and ask them. I think it's been a pretty damn good night so far. I was very very interested to hear a lot of what you and Julia said, because I want to get my young kid into the woods, and it was nice to hear that bear that shut up, Jesse. It was nice to hear that the bear event didn't end it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because that's what I was afraid of when I was watching that video. I was like, this can't, don't give up on this. So I was really nice to see that you've gone out again since. I'm one of these people who like, okay, I fall and broke my arse. I'll just be careful next time. I won't just stop going out,
Yeah.
And so it was nice to.
Yeah.
I respect that a lot. I think that's terrific.
Thank you. I will admit, after the bear encounter, when we came home, like we were like a little rattled from the experience. Like it kind of
Go figure.
Yeah, it kind of played in our minds for a little bit. So like it was definitely ruminating in there. And then about a week after we got back, we were looking a week ahead at that point and saw this beautiful patch of weather coming in September. And we just decided to make the decision. That sounds funny. We decided just to go back and have another camping trip with Cedar in the backcountry. Go to an area where we were probably going to be less, at the time there were a lot of, we came to recognize or came to understand that there were a few bear sightings around the Canoe Lake area. There were a few around the Tom Thompson Lake area. So we said, you know what, let's go to Opeongo. Let's get on the water taxi. Let's go up into the north arm of Opeongo quite a ways and camp on an island up there. And we ended up having a wonderful experience. And I'm so glad that we did that before the end of the year.
Yeah.
Just because it kind of like reset things a little bit. And it dissipated some of the anxiety and the fear that we were hanging on to after that first experience.
Yeah.
And just let things settle. We had a fantastic trip and it went so much better.
Mm-hmm.
And then a few months later in February of last year, then we started planning for the Minas Link, and we probably wouldn't have done the Minas Link if we hadn't gone back to do that second trip with Cedar.
I wanted to add something because I remember watching a few of your videos, Chris, when I first found you like a few months ago. I think I found you through Jesse actually.
Yeah.
And you were training like in your house. You had installed like these paddles with the.
Wasn't that cool?
Yeah, and I was like, that's so true. Like you have to train, and even like if you're planning on going out with your kids, you gotta train, because if you just like decide to like, okay, this weekend is nice out, I'm gonna go with my kid and we're gonna go camping, man, be sure to be like at least a little bit like prepared physically, because you're gonna hurt so bad if you don't train.
Yeah.
They're heavy, and you like it's inevitable. I'm having a hard time speaking. Inevitable. You cannot like think that they're gonna walk, because you're gonna have to either have them on a baby carrier or in your arms. They're heavy.
Yeah.
Heavy. I sometimes have both my children. I have one in the baby carrier in front and one in back, and I'm 5 foot tall. But I have to do it.
We have one of those things. I think we got it from Lee Valley. No, shut up, Jesse. Mountain Equipment Co-op. My other favorite Canadian retailer, where you put it on and it's just essentially this thing for the kid to sit in.
Yeah.
And you can put a little sunshade on it. And that's been in a couple of my videos, actually. And it's fabulous, because I'm not, do you know what I'm saying? I'm not trying to balance going down a rock, like an escarpment or something with a kid in my arm.
Yeah.
she's there. She can look around, right?
Yeah.
Pointing and stuff. And I wish that we'd had that when Camille was that young, because it would have been amazing for her as well. Like the first
Yeah.
couple of times getting Clemence into that thing, man, she was not having it. Okay. She was loud about it. She was like, no way. But she got used to, they get used to things.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous because my kids are further apart than yours are, Mel. And Chris, you've got one so far. I don't know if I would be able to do it if my kids were as close together as yours are, Mel, especially if one of them was 2 years old.
Yeah. I mean, they're 14 months apart, my kids, so it's like they're like twins, but one really doesn't listen very good.
Oh, no.
It's like I have two, like Ariel's gonna be 6 years old pretty soon, and on the 20th, right? So, but my other one's like it's as if she's 6 years old because they're the same height and everything. It's just that she just does not listen. Like she's clearly 14 months younger,
Right.
but like physically they're the same. So it's really weird.
Camille is very large for her age. Because of where her birthday falls, she's always the youngest one in her class, but kind of the tallest or one of the two tallest.
Okay.
Whereas Clemence this is going to be boring parent talk, but she's within the 15th percentile
Okay.
for size. Okay. So
Wow.
she is tiny.
Yeah.
She's like, and so it's really weird to have this one kid who's so big for her age. Like she's getting around here on me now. And the other one who's still at 2, like this tiny little, well, she's now old enough to like really clock herself on the bottom of the kitchen table. But like at that age, Camille was old enough to walk over to the kitchen table. I'm taking the marshmallows, It's like such a difference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oops.
Do you guys have familial, like, do you have people in the family who can help and take the kids every now and then?
Oh yeah. Well, when COVID isn't killing the world, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I said COVID. YouTube's gonna kill me now.
It doesn't do anything, Jesse.
No?
No.
I'm trusting you.
It doesn't. It doesn't.
Generally, yes. I was about to use my wife's name. My mother-in-law loves to have the kids up at the lake. She lives lakeside, and my wife grew up in that kind of situation. Like every summer, her mother would dump the kids at that house with her parents and go away. So the kids would be there for like 2 weeks or something. We don't quite do that, but they would stay there for a weekend or something.
Yeah.
And it's amazing.
Fortunate.
Isn't it wonderful?
Yeah, I'm very fortunate to have grandparents. On my boyfriend's side, he has like a very knit tight family, and they want them every weekend. Like at least one day every weekend, they will either come to grab them from us, or we will bring them to them. Which they're like a 45 to 1 hour drive, but they do not want to miss one weekend. They just like love them so much. So I'm really, really blessed with great grandparents, and they just didn't care about COVID.
Okay.
So that was nice.
We're very COVID aware and very COVID affected. So, man, we had some friends who had it in the early days, and they're still not doing right. What do they call those? That long something. There's like a term for that now. People who got sick right at the beginning and just never got better.
I have no idea.
Yeah, there's a term for it, but I don't remember what it is.
We're going into we're in orange now. We're not in the red zone anymore here.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah.
I dream of one day not being in a zone.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, Chris. I have this sort of long-standing I was supposed to go out for like a several day canoe trip with Martin Pine.
Right.
The May that COVID hit us. And so we've still got this someday plan, when the world opens up again, that I'll get over there and do a few days of canoeing.
Yeah.
So I just, let's just move on now. Let's just put a needle in my arm and let me move on now, please. For God's sakes.
I'm looking forward to next year. Both of my children are going to be in school. Yeah. That's going to be game changer. Like, I'm not saying that like I'm excited that my kids are going to to be gone, but seriously,
but you're hinting heavily.
I spend so much time with my children.
Going, oh, the kids
oh
are
my
in
gosh.
School. Oh.
Seriously, like I love my children. If you're watching, I love you, okay? But seriously, like if I compare myself to like many other parents, I've spent so much more time with my children than a lot of the people that I know. So I do not feel bad.
She's backpedaling now. She's backpedaling.
Yeah, she's totally. I just noticed it's 11 o'clock. So thanks to everyone who's hung out in the side chat. It was really nice to read all your stuff. Thanks to, all three of you now. I was going to say thanks to Chris and Julia, now in absentia, but also to Mal and Russell for coming on. I think that it is safe to say that this was a really cool live stream from where I'm sitting. So I hope to see you all next week. Between now and then, everyone here say goodbye to everyone. Everyone in the side chats.
Thanks for having us.
It was great, and I've been looking forward to having you on for a long time, so it was great to finally have you on. So between this week and next week, to everyone out there, please stay safe, stay happy, stay sane, stay healthy, and be kind to one another. Have a good night.